There we go. We are recording. So this recording will be available for everyone. So here we go. So a couple of things we're going to talk about today. So one is going to be the history of the initial investment to buy a Speed Pro franchise, because that's important. Some of the earlier conversations and webinars and also some face-to-faces with you, we've talked about, hey, is the current offering really sellable? Well, I'm happy to report today that as of yesterday, Fairfield Maxwell has given us the green light on our plan for 2018, which does include a lower initial investment. We're going to talk about that here in just a little bit, about what that really means and what that price point looks like it's going to be. But I'm hoping you will all agree that it's going to be much more attractive and more sellable, and it's going to have fewer people drop out because they're not qualified financially. And we have some changes to the home office team that I'm going to share with you. And again, it's a preliminary organizational chart. Again, some of you have asked for an organizational chart. I will still send this out to you, but there will be ads to it coming up very, very soon, within the next, call it 5 to 6 weeks, I believe. I will do a distribution via email later today to all of the studio owners as well, regarding those changes. So just wanted to give you guys, again, that first heads up. And then we have an offer that I really think is an important offer for you. And I'm going to ask you to do some follow-up on that as soon as you possibly can, including today. And we'll get to that at the end. And then just quickly the agenda for the class. So here we go. Hopefully you can read this okay. I'm going to need to put my spectacles on. But this is a historical perspective. Oldest at the bottom, most current, and the current offer today on top. And you can see the transition of the investment has largely been climbing throughout the years. And as I understood, for 2014 and 15, the power play, that was, I think, when we first introduced the flatbed. You probably will correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think that's what I understood about that. But you see the initial franchise fee has been the $49.9 ever since 2009. That does not seem to be a problem, considering the fact that in the early days it was a 20-year franchise. Now it's a 10. That's still a good value at $5,000 a year for a 10-year term. And so that $49.9 will stay put as it is today. The big rub, as everybody is aware, was the equipment package, and there was some profit built into that. There's no doubt about that, and it also introduced the flatbed as a mandatory piece. So the cost to actually get into the franchise was actually $284 for, because as you know, here as of late, we've added the $10,000 initial spend that we're now starting to spend now on behalf of our new studio owners, where we're doing the marketing for them from the home office. What's interesting is, again, the skew of the timeframes are a little rough, but if you look at the distribution, we did 5 sales at the $199. That was January through April, a total of 4 months. For the final 8 months, we did 8 sales. So again, we didn't set any records. The records years were 2010 and 11, basically at the depths of the recession, and where people were really looking for opportunities to work for themselves. But nevertheless, that shift from $199 to the $284.4 did not really change the number of sales per deal. Did I say that right? I'm sorry, number of sales per month. Okay, so January to April was 5 over 4 months, and then May to December was 1 per month. And quite frankly, we probably could have jammed a couple more in here at the end of the year to at least be on equivalent to where the lower price point was. So while I agree, and we are making that change, that the price point was a meaningful issue, it doesn't really necessarily show itself here. Where it showed itself is that we had more leads, I believe, and we just had more drop out, but we could still get some of those across the finish line. So here's where we were, and here's where it looks like we're going to go. And I say look like, I'm going to finalize this by Friday. that we're going to stay with the 49.9, and the equipment package, if you look at the very bottom there, will still offer the flatbed, but it won't be a requirement. We still believe that the flatbed is incredibly important to the success of the studio early on. That's certainly something I think I've witnessed there very, very clearly, but it is a big priced item that sometimes it is a knockout factor for new franchisees when they're required to have that flatbed. With an awful lot of flatbeds in the system that are probably underutilized, I think there's still plenty of opportunities for existing studio owners to do some wholesaling for new owners until they can justify that flatbed, and we're going to coach them to try to get that flatbed sooner than later, certainly on a faster time frame than maybe some had in the past. And so the equipment package itself with the furnishings and the computers and the supplies and all of that would be $115. So that would give us a price point of $164.9, plus we'd add the $10,000 in for the Quick Start marketing program. We're going to continue that and test that. If we see good results, I'll tell you, if we see really, really good results from that, from the first quarter of testing, when we have to redo the FDD again in April, we may bump that to 20,000. So it's why I didn't bake that into the very, very top line. So all in right now, it'd be $174.9. And if we find that Quick Start marketing program was really robust and really helpful to get the phone ring and to get some business generated and as studios are opening, that may go then to $184.9. But when you compare that to where we are, we haven't seen that kind of pricing since 2012. So that'll put us really very much into the game, right into the mix with our competitors as far as price point, and that should be able to allow us to engage many more people, fewer maybe dropping out with that price point. Again, it's going to be incumbent on all of us to encourage our new owners to get that flatbed as soon as possible. So again, final decision on Friday. It's possible I might go up another $4,000, but I think at this point I'm going to settle in at this $174.9, including that Quick Start marketing program. So hopefully that comes as good news to you. You've all been asking for it if I've talked to you, and so here we go. We're going to deliver that. As far as the org chart is concerned, so first of all, I'm going to talk to you about a departure that's going to be effective on Friday. So just want to let everybody know that Stephen Brown has decided to resign to pursue other opportunities. And I thank him very, very much for not only his 4 years of service for Speed Pro, but he's been tremendously helpful to me in my transition over these first 2 months. Stephen gave notice right before the Christmas holiday, and he's going to work through this week. And so we're going to spend pretty much all day together on Friday, making sure I have every bit of information I think I'm going to need going forward. But obviously that's going to change our organizational chart, and which is the reason why I have not got this out to everybody yet. So this is what this is going to look like. And just to let you know, so what we're going to do is we're going to be setting up more departmental than maybe what we've had before. Some of it's very, very familiar. You see Patrick still working with Ryan and Rob, and that's going to stay intact. Gina and Jody, of course, have been working very closely together on the coaching side. You know, we've debated whether we call consultants. We'll probably still call their area consulting, but really what they do and what we do as regions is coach our franchisees. We teach them to fish, right? We don't fish for them, and we don't charge for that service as well. And so coaching, I think, actually is the better role description of what they do. We are going to bring on a general counsel. That's something I had committed to during the hiring process that I was going to do. We're consolidating Don and Aaron working on strictly the marketing side. So they're going to work closely together with Jamie working here on the digital and tech side. Ryan will be working with Sarah, and we're going to bring on a new franchise development screener that when we get leads from portals or on speedprofranchising.com, that person will be the first to go through and validate and see if that lead is right for a franchise candidate. Next week, we'll talk about more of that because we do believe that some of these candidates that come through that you either generate or we generate might actually be great studio employees as a general manager or sales manager, production manager, things like that. People are certainly clicking on us on a portal on speedprofranchising.com, may not be qualified, but maybe are very interested in the business. So we don't want to lose those people as well. And so that's why we wanted to add that position there. And then we're going to add a controller to work with Jenny to make sure we got our financial sides properly in place. So you might wonder, well, why is Steve Phelps up on top? Steve is still very much part of our organization, but Steve and I had a conversation before Christmas, and all through this process of having webinars with you guys and really thinking about the future and how we make this work, the biggest thing that was I guess I'd call it the scariest thing that we were dealing with is, okay, you might be real effective at generating new leads and you might be great working people through the process, but do you have the skill to get people to say yes and get them to close and pay the money? A lot of people drop out at the very end when they get cold feet, and you need somebody who's really on point and knows not only lead generation, but the process that can get people to say yes. And that's definitely Steve and Ryan Reeves. So here's going to be my offer, and I'll get into a little more detail here in a little bit. So Steve has graciously agreed that he will work for you. And so Steve, since he's one of your peers and knows you all very, very well, and everybody I've talked to loves Steve, he would be your resource, and he would be there to again help you with making the right decision on lead generation, all the way through probably being the one closing the deals for you. Where Ryan Reeves would stay focused on our direct owned areas, and so we would do that kind of that separation, which was why I've kind of pulled Steve the way I have in a different place into the organizational chart. So he would be your resources. Now I'll get into how it would work and the cost and different things like that here in just a second. But so this is basically what our organization is going to look like. We're going to be adding 2 new people, replacing Stephen, of course. And again, I thank him for all the support and help he provided me for these last 2 months and leading up to me joining as well. So that's what it's going to look like. Again, what I said earlier, I'm going to then email this out to the rest of the owners today with a brief email describing what this is. And then as we go and start filling these roles, we're going to go ahead and provide more depth and detail on who does what and different things like that. But I wanted to get this to you here as fast as I could. So as far as the sales process, so I've got to tell you how we're looking at our business of selling franchises going forward. So we're going to do a number of things that are going to generate leads. And they're going to come from a lot of different sources, broker and non-broker. And we're investing an awful lot of money. I think all told, we're going to probably be investing about $300,000 in lead generation. And at the end of this webinar, I'll kind of explain how those leads will be distributed and all those kind of things. So I talked about we're going to hire a screener. And hopefully, again, that screener will kick out the non-franchise qualified candidates. Maybe we can use those other candidates to maybe, again, be an employee within a studio. That's what we're hoping for. But those that survive that first screening will become an opportunity that will be handed over to Ryan to close. And so Sarah will be working very closely on the lead generation with the screener and making sure that flow of leads is going properly. Ryan will take those candidates through the sales process and through the closing of the sale. And that's the way we're looking at that here. With Steve Phelps, as hopefully you think that's a great thing. I think it's an amazing thing that he's willing to do this, and he'll be a great resource for you. But there might be some of you that choose not to participate. And so I'm looking at 2 different scenarios here of an RD that does not want to work together with others and maybe pull resources to do this sales process most efficiently. And maybe some of you want to go alone. and not invest in that and participate in that. Well, if that's the case, which I hope there's nobody on this call that wants to do it that way, but who knows? You never know. I can't predict. So a go alone strategy would look like this, where that RD would generate their own leads, again, outside of the ones we're already generating for that RD. Hopefully that RD would hire a screener if they're driving enough leads, doing the same thing. But then once that candidate is identified, that RD would go through the sales process and the closing of the sale. And that would be that go alone effort, which I don't think will be very effective. I'm pitching and begging you to consider highly this second option, which looks like this, that working together, you can generate more leads within your respective regions. Again, collectively, you may want to replicate what we're going to do here by hiring a screener that would take all these leads, validate them, again, make available the non-qualified ones to your studio owners as possible future employees. Those that are true opportunities, then they get handed off to both you and Steve to work people through the sales process. And again, working together, or Steve doing the closings for you, getting them to say, yes, that would be a pooled RD effort, a pooled resource type of effort. To me, I think this makes the most sense. But again, we've got personalities and we've got budgets and different things like that, and maybe even commitment levels that aren't going to be the same. I'm hoping, though, that lots of you like this idea and will jump on this idea and try to work collaboratively together along with Steve. So just before I lose my train of thought here, move to the next slide, one of the things that I've asked Steve to do is put a call together for all of you, or another webinar or something like that, just with all of you, with Steve, about how this process on this option 2 might work. I don't want to get into his compensation and different things like that. That's something that's a private matter. But the way I view this, it's going to be like this. So let me come back here for a second. So again, I have Steve up here for a reason. He's going to be on our payroll. Everything will be paid out through us. But to participate in this option 2, again, the collective group of RDs, however you would decide to split that cost, you would have to pay his wage and commissions and all that kind of stuff that is generated through his effort to help you directly. I want to keep him on our payroll for lots of reasons. And so I'm not asking him to step away and work with you guys kind of as an employee or contractor. He's our guy. We want him to be our guy, but we would like you to reimburse us for that effort that he does on strictly your behalf. And again, just want to be really clear, he would only work for you in your regions. Ryan Reeves. Okay, hopefully that's as an employer. Content Reeves would work in all the direct owned regions. So we're splitting that country basically in half only that way. Okay, hopefully that's clear as mud. As far as lead handling is concerned, so we have to have a gentleman's agreement here. This could get really complicated, and I don't want to make any of this complicated. I'd like to see us each doing some lead generation. We're going to do the heavy lifting, I believe, but I think you would be remiss if you didn't invest in generating leads yourself. And so any lead that we create, any lead that could generate, any lead that you generate, you know what, I think we should be giving each other for no charge. Okay, there's free distribution of leads. You never know which ones are going to hit speedprofranchising.com. We're just going to be sending those out to you or to your screener, whatever decision you're going to make there. And we're not going to ask for any payment on that. We would ask you to reciprocate for us on that. We don't know where you're going to generate a lead, maybe with a broker that we're not going to work with, and give those leads to us for free as well. Each party will pay for its own lead generation and franchise sales expenses, except for we're going to do a lot of the heavy lifting. And there's a couple things here I want to really make a point to mention. So the top 3 franchise broker networks, we're going to get more engaged with them. We're going to get both Steve, Ryan, and myself engaged with them. We're going to provide some incentive packages that, depending on how many sales, again, regardless of where that is in the country, how many sales we get from them in 2018, we're going to put some additional dollars in their pocket if they hit certain milestones, like a 6th sale or a 10th or more sale. So we're going to do all that heavy lifting, and it's a big investment for us to go after those big 3. The top 3 franchise portals, again, that will be our expense. And again, any leads that come out of those, we're just going to freely distribute those to you. So we're going to focus on the top 3 in both, which means there's other local and national broker networks and other franchise portals that, again, collectively, I hope you will see the importance of reaching out everywhere we can throughout the country, and you guys come together to maybe advertise and list in those other places as well, and work with other broker networks as well. We're going to do some enhancements to speedprofranchising.com. We want to obviously get more people to click and stay interested and be interested. We'll pay for all of that, except for if you guys are going to do any videos. I'm going to ask you next week to strongly consider creating or forwarding to us content that we can put on not only speedpro.com, but speedprofranchising.com. If you're going to film a video, any of those kind of expenses, of course, we're not going to pay for, but we want to put as much content, great content that will drive SEO on both sites, so we can get more leads and more people interested in staying engaged on the website. We'll engage a national PR firm that you might still want to do something local if you want to try to generate your own PR, but again, from a national basis, we'll pay for that engagement. We will ask you to contribute, so whether it be some articles or some news that you can send us that we can continually push out content, we want to do that cooperatively with you. And then if we do an advertisement, I'm sure we will continue with Entrepreneur Magazine, we will eat that cost. The rest will be whoever decides to do what other types of advertising and marketing, and we'll go into those details next week. However, in preparation for your call with Steve Phelps, I'm going to send to Steve for him to distribute to all of you our lead generation plan for 2018. It will go over what I just talked about, but a whole lot more detail, including other lead generation sources. And so I want to get that in your hands so you have that before class next week. The biggest thing, guys, I need from you when you walk in the door on Tuesday is this particular issue right here. Are you going to come together and pull resources? Are you willing to invest in that by reimbursing us for Steve's salaries and compensation? That's going to be critically important. If a lot of you come together, it's really cheap. You could not hire a part-time employee for what that cost would be covered across all of you. And so I strongly recommend that you have that call with Steve, whether it be today or tomorrow. Have that call and come up with some type of way to distribute your costs amongst each other, whether it's equal across the way or it's based on opportunity or what have you, or a number of leads. However that is going to work out, you gotta let ego go to the side and find a solution. And don't do infighting about who should pay more and it's fair, unfair. That's why I'm leaving this all to you guys. I don't want to get in the middle of it. I don't think that's right for me to get in the middle of it, but you got to cut through any ego issues about that and fairness, unfairness, and come to a solution. And hopefully you walk in the door on Tuesday morning and you have decided how you want to go about doing that. Okay, that's my big ask between now and Tuesday. So that biggest challenge is that, what I just talked about, and not investing in lead acquisitions and other potential cost of sales. That's something you've got to solve before coming in. And I think this is my last slide. So we have a training class, of course, Tuesday and Thursday. I see lots of activity about who's coming in when. We'll do an evening dinner, probably close by the hotel or in the hotel on Tuesday evening. But then we're going to do the Nuggets basketball game. So again, that's going to be on us. We'll get us out there. The biggest challenge we have is transportation. We can either take light rail. There's a light rail station right down the street, probably less than a half a mile from the hotel. We could all hop on the train and go and see the Nuggets, and people can just leave then whenever they would like if they've seen enough. I know, like myself, I'm not a basketball fan. I heard some of you are not either. But nevertheless, it'll be a fun outing. If you have not replied to either Bree or Sarah regarding if you're attending or not, could you please do that right away? And we want to make sure we don't miss somebody and not get enough tickets. And for those of you with the team, if you haven't been notified enough, yes, if you want to come to the game, anybody on the team, absolutely come to the game as well. So that's it, I believe. So any questions? I have to assume I'm on. There we go.
It's 11 o'clock.
For the RDs who choose to invest in this program, how the franchise fee will be split. If you're talking about the franchise, well, right now it's going to, Scott, I could answer that a lot of different ways because I'm not 100% sure about how to interpret your question. Can that question wait until we're face to face and go through all of that, just to be sure I don't answer the wrong question? Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, let me do this. I'm going to see, I've unmuted you guys. Anybody have any comments? Maybe verbally instead of typing it in. Hopefully everybody is unmuted now. Like crickets out there. Okay, so does that mean we're good to go? I'm going to assume we're good to go. Okay, so with that, thank you all for being part of the webinar. I'm really looking forward to next week. I'll send a couple things out. I'll send you the org chart, this power in the PowerPoint as well, plus that lead generation doc will come from Steve. Please schedule your call with him as a collective group. Love to know the results of that. I'm going to mute everybody again, sorry. And love to know the results of that when you walk in the door on Tuesday. And Steve, obviously, if you're on, give me some feedback on that as well. So thank you all very much. Again, Happy New Year, and see you in a couple days. Take care.
Steve's 2 days to do that.